Hello and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen and Karen's Library. I've been thinking about women who believe trans women are women, and I'm working on a theory. There are women who need men to tell them how to think but have issues with men. What do you think, Megan?
This is clear. Or if the fine to get into a sorority or whatever, the fee is $10,000, then it's $10,000. That's what it is. And so man and woman, these are words that are clear, that have definitions. They're not like, it's not like the word integrity. And so that the fact that the word woman is being degraded to an idea, to a vibe, that it's just, it's not sustainable for a country.
No, and then, what does it mean to have a woman-only space? And what's a woman's right? I mean, all of this comes into question then, of course, if we don't know what a woman is, it doesn't mean anything at all. It's like crazy making.
It is crazy. And I think for a lot of women, it should be offensive because there are many amazing things about being a woman, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But there are hardships that go along with being a woman. I am a mom of two, so I have gotten pregnant twice. I have given birth twice. I have breastfed twice, and it is hard. I mean, being a junior high girl is a unique experience that somebody who later puts on a dress cannot understand the hormonal changes and the realities that people lived through. And so it really, like, this type of offense of being able to put on a dress and assert womanhood is not something that we would accept in the race context. The lie that you can change a fact about yourself is not something we would accept in the age context. And so it really doesn't make sense why we would accept it in the sex context, except for that women put up with it. Only women can accept the abuse done to women in this way. And that really is, I think, one of the things that I just don't understand is why so many women are eager and willing to let themselves be invaded in this way.
I don't understand either. I've never been able to figure out why so many women not only go along with this, but actually advocate for men to be allowed into these spaces, who claim, these men who are identifying as trans women are so much more marginalized than they are. Like I was rereading because I did follow this case when it was happening at the time, but I was rereading this case with these six Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority sisters, and like the way the sorority itself threw them under the bus was so insulting. I mean, they treated him as a victim of these women because they were fighting for their own space. I think they called the suit a frivolous attempt to eject Langford. The guy was calling himself Artemis Langford for their own political purposes. They were saying the women suing were flinging dehumanizing mud in order to bully Miss Langford on the national stage. They said the plaintiffs can resign their membership in the organization if a position of inclusion is too offensive to their personal values. It's so insulting.
It's so insulting because also there are fraternities at the University of Wyoming. And so nobody, and in the whole entire space, nobody is saying that men shouldn't be anywhere or men shouldn't have places to go, or men or all people shouldn't be treated with dignity, but that there should be sororities. Sororities should be allowed. And you can't have sororities if sororities all of a sudden mean that you have to have men. And really what they're fighting for is just the basic allowance of their dignity and their single sex spaces, and honestly what they signed up for. But yes, the entire board, all of the Kappa leadership, these are all people who themselves benefited. They are where they are today because of the single sex environment that they were allowed to have. They loved their sorority, they loved their experience so much that they wanted to dedicate their life to it and give back. Why did they love that experience? Why did they grow so much from it? Why are single sex education, single sex opportunities so important for women? Because they work. right? The statistics are there that for a lot of people, this helps people grow in their self-confidence. People are in single-sex education are more likely to go to grad school. I mean, there is a lot of science-backed evidence that shows that these are helpful experiences for women, and they're experiences that these women had, and they're denying it to the next generation.
U.S. President Donald Trump is continuing to roll back the rights of transgender Americans, today signing a controversial new order banning transgender athletes from women's sport. The Australian government says there is no plan to do that here. With an election around the corner, politicians are treading carefully.
Lining up for his team photo.
What a nice picture this is, huh?
President Donald Trump surrounded by girls as he signs an executive order.
I want to make this a really good signature because this is a big one, right?
Preventing transgender athletes from taking part in women's sport, effective immediately.
With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over.
Under the order, funding will be cut off for schools and educational institutes that don't comply.
If you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding.
Republicans defend it as restoring fairness to sport. Gender rights advocates say it's nonsense.
Doing complete harm to the most vulnerable communities in his own society.
It's President Trump's latest move to roll back the rights of trans people. Canberra's response:
we've got no plans to do that kind of thing in Australia.
I think that it's just fair for women to just play with women.
At the last federal election, Liberal candidate Catherine Deves sparked controversy with her anti-trans views. She lost convincingly.
This time around, politicians are being careful not to get caught up in a culture war, knowing voters, no matter how they feel on this issue, are more interested in hearing about cost of living relief.
It's not something that dominates the minds of everyday mums and dads and families.
Oh, God, I hate to say this, but I kind of agree a little bit with Sarah on this one.
They're rarely on the same team.
Unfortunately, I think it will send significant repercussions across the globe, especially here in Australia, and I think it will be challenged, but unfortunately it will do a lot of harm, especially tied to federal funding and those type of things. So I think organisations over there will be contesting this. I know there's legal challenges that are going to go forwards, but I think of all the issues that are affecting women's sport, trans women is not one of them, unfortunately.
Well, that was going to be my next question, Ryan. What are the numbers? Is there research to show what sort of numbers are participating in women's sport?
Yeah, so look, from the US context, which is obviously where this is, at a Senate inquiry, the president of the NCAA, which is the peak body for kind of college, university athletics over there across all sports, on a hearing, he actually kind of gave the facts that out of 520,000 athletes competing across 110,000 schools, there was less than 10 trans athletes who were competing. So in terms of that actual percentage, it's very, very low. And here in Australia, I've done research around this area as well. We know that obviously in terms of the trans population, it's around about maybe 1% to 2%, if that. Not many of them are actually playing sport. So this isn't an actual issue really affecting the integrity of women's sport. And unfortunately, not many trans people are actually playing sport because there's all these bans, there's unwelcoming environments. So the ones that do play kind of should be commended, and we should try and keep there, because we know that when trans and gender diverse people do play sport, it positively impacts their lives and reduces depression, anxiety scores and suicide ideation as well.
Ryan, we should stress that we're not talking about elite sports here, because we heard the stories from the Olympics, from various competitions. We're not talking about elite sports. So in terms of community, school sports, which is what is being referred to here, is there evidence that transgender people have a physical advantage when it comes to playing those sports?
No, not at the community and grassroots. So, for example, here in Australia, up until the ages of 12, any child or young person can play in any competition and competition sport, for example. So sometimes you might get girls playing in boys' competition because there aren't enough girls to fill competitions, and vice versa. So from a very young age, we can't really say that trans and gender diverse people have these physical advantages. It's only really at the elite level and in adults that we do kind of see that. So to try and ban trans people from participating in school and community-based sport as young people denies them opportunities to be able to develop important social skills, friendships, those type of things. There's no evidence base whatsoever to show, especially amongst children and young people, that they might have advantages, because most people and most schools, etc., are co-ed and boys and girls can play sport. So there's no evidence to kind of support any of this. Even at the elite level, the evidence is still developing around competitive advantages and those type of things.
Where is the discussion going here, do you think, Ryan? We've got Queensland pausing puberty blockers for under 18. There's various things going through their parliament. The federal government has got a review into trans healthcare for young people. With Donald Trump making this intervention, where is it you think that the discussion around this is going?
Look, unfortunately, I think we're going to have history repeating itself with the federal election coming up. So we know the last one with Scott Morrison and Catherine Deves, where they used a platform to protect women's sport, and Senator Sarah Chandler down in Tasmania. I think we're going to see those recycled arguments introduced at this upcoming federal election, which Peter Dutton is already kind of poking those fires, let's say, around the anti-diversity kind of approach. So I think, unfortunately, we're going to see a lot more discussion about this, even though at the last election, and there was some research that showed people don't see this as an issue. They're more actually interested in the cost of living crisis and those type of things. So I think we're going to revisit it. But I think one thing that we do have here, less so in America, is that we have strong anti-vilification laws and we have strong federal laws around these things. So we've got the Sex Discrimination Act, the Equal Opportunity Act. There are kind of strict laws and regulations that protect things. And we have seen some cases where legally around, for example, Giggle versus Tickle. And there's been another one recently where people have challenged these things, and it's the Australian federal courts have kind of sided with trans people, which has shown that we do have strong regulations and laws. So if anything like that was to come here, I think it would be really, really challenged in the Australian federal laws.
Sorry, Barnaby, it is front and centre in my mind. So see you later, Nationals. And Chloe is winning for the worst outfit so far this year. Apart from it doesn't fit, look where the buttons are. The nipple ones are interesting. And look where the lower buttons are. So they're on purpose. Anyway, that'll do. See you later. Bye.